dive right in, shall we? When we hear the word samurai, our minds almost instantly go to clashing steel, right? Brilliant armor, unyielding warriors charging headfirst into battle. But you know what? That's really only a fraction of the whole story. In this explainer, we're going to look way past that surface level. We're exploring the deep, internal balance between fierce martial discipline and this really profound dedication to honor, loyalty, and stoic grace. We're breaking down the archetype to see the samurai for what they actually were: living, breathing embodiments of an incredibly strict moral code.
Look at the immediate visual contrast on screen here. You've got this figure equipped with incredibly lethal weapons. Yet they're standing in this entirely calm, totally still posture. Take a really close look. The environment around them is absolute chaos. I mean, the wind is howling, whipping their hair around, the tall grass is practically bending over backwards in the gale, but the samurai, just utterly still. It's a massive juxtaposition. Armed to the teeth, completely capable of immense destruction, standing in the middle of a literal storm, but anchored in total serenity. It perfectly sets up exactly what we're talking about today.
So, it brings up a really crucial question. What actually separates a true samurai from just, well, a simple killer with a blade? If anyone can pick up a sword and do some damage, why are the samurai so legendary? What's the secret ingredient that takes a warrior out of the realm of just basic violence and elevates them to icon status? Getting this distinction right is absolutely key to understanding one of history's most fascinating groups of people. It wasn't about their ability to take a life. It was entirely about the framework they used to live their own.
Let's move into our first section, Beyond the Blade, focusing on the actual code of the samurai.
Because honestly, before a sword is ever even drawn, the battle is already won or lost right up here, in the mind. We all know about their physical conditioning, but their mental conditioning? Oh, it was arguably way more rigorous. The big concept to grasp here is Bushido. It's that internal moral compass that keeps their extreme capacity for violence in check. Bushido, the way of the warrior, wasn't necessarily some written rulebook you could just check out from the local library. For centuries, it was this unspoken, deeply profound cultural transmission. Moral principles passed directly from master to student, parent to child. It demanded a super delicate, lifelong internal balance of discipline, honor, loyalty, and stoic grace. Basically, without Bushido, a samurai is just a monster. But with it, they're an absolute artist of life and death.
And this really hits the nail on the head when we look at the difference between just a regular warrior and a true samurai. Think about it. A mere warrior, they're driven purely by aggression. They just want to win at all costs, no matter how messy or downright dishonorable it gets. But a living embodiment of Bushido, they are driven by honor. They balance all that lethality with this profound sense of restraint. They aren't just fighting to win a brawl, they fight to preserve order, to serve their lord, and to uphold their internal code. It's a completely different mindset.
Which brings us to Section 2, Fierce Martial Discipline, and that undeniable capacity for destruction.
Now, obviously, we can't just brush over the absolute terrifying lethality of these folks. We're talking a lot about philosophy right now, sure, but this philosophy was forged in the absolute crucible of constant brutal warfare. First and foremost, they were professional masters of combat. Just look at the visual tools of the trade here. The multiple swords, one slung on the back, others right at the hip. That represents an entire lifetime dedicated to mastering the art of war. The katana, the wakizashi, that intricate armor, none of that was just for show. Mastering just one of these things meant decades of grueling, repetitive physical training. Calloused hands, a mind trained to react in literally a fraction of a second. This figure is a walking weapon, holding the capacity for instant destruction right there on their belt.
But, and this is a massive but, carrying those blades is really only half the equation. That fierce martial discipline, it's kind of useless without the moral framework to contain it. Think of it like a massive dam holding back a raging river. The dam harnesses that crazy destructive force and turns it into immense power. That's exactly what Bushido does for the samurai. True discipline is basically lethality governed by morality. Take away the moral constraint, and you literally just have chaos. The ultimate flex of a samurai's power isn't actually drawing the blade, it's the conscious choice not to draw it.
Moving on to Section 3, the weight of honor, the true internal armor.
So, this leads us to the totally invisible burdens these warriors carried, which honestly were probably way heavier than the actual steel they lugged around. Honor wasn't just some nice buzzword for the samurai class. It was their entire existential reality. Losing your honor, that was considered a fate far, far worse than death itself. It was this tangible, heavy currency that dictated everything: social standing, family legacy, personal self-worth, the whole shebang. Look at the posture here, the bowed head, that really grounded, unmoving stance. They aren't looking up at the sky screaming in triumph, right? The chin is tucked, it's completely grounded. There's this undeniable air of humility and quiet, honorable reflection. That is not the stance of an ego-driven conqueror. That's someone who is deeply aware of their responsibilities, forever carrying this immense, invisible weight of their reputation.
As the quote goes, the true armor is not physical, but a profound dedication to honor. And that really sums it up perfectly. Physical armor? Sure, it can be pierced by an arrow or smashed in battle. But a profound dedication to honor? That creates an absolute, impenetrable shield around a samurai's legacy. If they acted with pure integrity, righteousness, and courage, their name was completely untouchable, no matter what happened to their physical body on the battlefield.
Let's jump to Section 4, Absolute Loyalty, a life dedicated entirely to another.
Right alongside honor is the real anchor of a samurai's existence, their unwavering loyalty. Because a samurai didn't just operate solo in a vacuum. In fact, the word samurai basically translates to those who serve. Their entire identity was inextricably linked to their master, the daimyo or the shogunate. And this absolute loyalty wasn't forced. It was a deeply ingrained, completely conscious choice that literally dictated their every move. It breathed actual purpose into all that crazy martial prowess we talked about. Fascinatingly, they weren't mercenaries chasing a paycheck, and they weren't slaves held in chains. They were bound by unseen duty. It was a spiritual and cultural contract, meaning they were fully prepared to sacrifice absolutely everything, even their own lives, to fulfill that obligation to their lord. It gave this incredible, transcendent meaning to an otherwise incredibly violent job.
And that brings us to Section 5, Achieving Stoic Grace, Finding Stillness in the Storm. We've finally reached the ultimate manifestation of Bushido. What happens when you combine that intense martial capability, a super strict code of honor, and absolute loyalty? You get this final, beautiful characteristic. It's the absolute hallmark of a master. Check out the environment in this image again. You've got birds scattering in the sky, the samurai's hair whipping wildly, the tall brass violently bending in the wind. You can almost hear the storm howling through the reeds, right? But the warrior? Just a total pillar of stillness. In the absolute center of all this crazy kinetic energy, the silhouette is anchored, unflinching, unbothered. It's not just about standing in bad weather. It's a massive metaphor for facing the literal storms of life, warfare, and political chaos without ever losing your center. That is stoic grace visualized right there. It's the insane ability to maintain inner peace while facing absolute external chaos. Stoic grace means completely detaching from fear or panic, taking the present moment, no matter how dangerous or wild it gets, and just accepting it with a crystal clear, calm mind. Because honestly, it's only from that place of inner peace that a samurai can act with true honorable precision. The second they let that external chaos get inside their head, their technique falters, their honor slips, and their loyalty wavers.
So pulling all this together, the samurai is kind of a walking paradox. They managed to successfully balance these wild extremes to become the literal living embodiment of Bushido. Think about these dualities. They were incredibly lethal individuals who dedicated their lives to cultivating inner peace. They were fiercely disciplined in warfare, but moved through life with this amazing, profound grace. They were hardened, terrifying warriors who would turn around and spend hours doing delicate calligraphy, writing poetry, or just acting as philosophers. That successful navigation of completely opposite extremes, that's exactly why their history is just so endlessly captivating.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this one thought. How can we actually apply the lessons of this ancient, crazy balance to our own modern, everyday battles? Look, we aren't carrying katanas around, and we definitely aren't facing down literal charging armies. But we all face our own chaotic storms, don't we? We all have our own fierce ambitions. The question is, can you balance those ambitions with stoic grace? Can you stay completely anchored in your values, standing perfectly still, even when the winds of change are absolutely howling around you? Something to chew on. Thanks so much for diving into this with me today. I really hope you walk away with a totally new appreciation for the true depth of the samurai.